Welcome to Grid Live Wrap-Up. Joe here, along with Kobe Lambert from the Podium Finish and Ben Schneider. Supercars, IMSA, and of course Nascar all racing this weekend. We invite everyone to comment in the chat room with your question and your opinions. We may share it right here on the air. Starting with NASCAR, the race was dominated by Kyle Larson today. He led 269 laps out of all the laps today, but Ryan Blaney gets to win by leading 25 laps in total, including the last handful of laps after Larson's tires seemed to have worn out too much. 6 different winner, another Ford victory at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Thoughts on the race?
You know, Joe, I hate to say it because I know it might frustrate some people who love this racetrack, but I think it's time. I think it's time to repave it. You know, Kobe, the surface is older than us. You know, it's 24 years old now, and I know people say that it gives the track character. I know it's what Atlanta is known for, but you look at the last few races here. You know, I'm going to admit to myself, you know, credit where it's due to Kyle Larson for the run he had today. But I found it hard not to switch back and forth between the Cup race and March Madness basketball. You know, something needs to happen, and the Cup Series package, you know, which we've talked about plenty of times before, certainly doesn't help. But I think, you know, something's got to change. And I actually just put a poll out on Twitter 45 minutes ago, and the response is pretty overwhelming. I simply asked, should we repave Atlanta, yes or no? And it's about 80% yes right now. So I think that's something that they're definitely going to have to look at in the coming few months. We'll run the summer races, and then we'll see if they make a decision. But I think it might be time.
Yeah. Oh, my thoughts on the race. I thought it was an average race. You know, like, hey, it was a race, and with the finish towards the end, I thought Kyle Larson had in the bag, as you mentioned, Joe, leading 269 laps today. Such a dominant performance by Young Money. And then all of a sudden, here comes Ryan Blaney into the picture, and it was like really crazy to see Ryan Blaney come in with the momentum. Then Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney's teammate, made it really hard for Kyle Larson to lap him, and then Ryan Blaney made the move on Kyle Larson and never looked back, and Blaney pulled away to win the race. So it was definitely nice to see a pass for the lead late in the race. But Ben, you said it's time, and it's really looking like repaving Atlanta Motor Speedway. It's inevitable at this point. I'd be shocked if it's not repaved within the next 5 years. Maybe they keep the old surface around for another year or two, but within the next 3 years, I really see them deciding that it's finally time to repave Atlanta Motor Speedway, although it's probably going to upset a lot of the drivers who really enjoy racing on the surface.
I think a lot of drivers, especially Alex Bowman in the press conference after the race, he said, don't repave the track. Of course, Ryan Blaney and his crew chief don't repave the track. They really enjoy it. But definitely when it came to the race today, we did see the field get pretty much spread out throughout the race. Very few cautions. So surprised we didn't get a caution from Corey LaJoie, but of course we didn't see the coverage of that contact with the wall, so couldn't really tell how hard it was. Speaking about contact, of course, the big surprise when it comes to Blaney, we saw Chase Elliott. He went out after making contact. He was definitely a favorite, and we saw that in the crowd. Another big surprise, Stewart-Haas Racing, nowhere in contention really today. Hamrick went a lap down on stage 1, was really unhappy with the way the car was handling. Still, he managed to come back to finish 10th place. He was the highest finishing Stewart-Haas Racing car today. Is this race our true indicator that Stewart-Haas Racing is not at the same level as Gibbs, Hendrick, and Penske?
Yes, Joe. It really seems like Stewart-Haas Racing has been missing a step lately, and it might come from, you know, having 2 young drivers there, Cole Custer and Chase Briscoe. I'm sure they'll come along at some point and be more competitive. Eric Almirola, you know, they have good days, they have bad days. And Kevin Harvick, I know I've said it before on this program. It seems like since that he had his epic fall during that final round before making the championship 4, it really seems like things have not really gone his way so far. And at one point during that on the radio, he said that the car he had today wasn't the best one that he had at Atlanta, and that it was like evil and wasn't handling well at all. And Kevin Harvick dropped back in the field, but he did eventually recover from early struggles to finish in the top 10, but it certainly wasn't easy. It wasn't a dominating Kevin Harvick performance like we've seen here in the past at Atlanta Motor Speedway, but Kevin Harvick had to work really hard to secure a top 10 finish.
Yeah, Atlanta historically has been one of Kevin Harvick's better tracks. I know I was certainly surprised to see him struggle as much as he did today. I think he even said it on the radio. It's the worst car he's ever had at this track. So, 6 races in, we've started to get some real positive data at this point of the year. I think it's definitely safe to say Stewart Haas, still time to right the ship, but definitely not where they were last year or up at the same levels of top teams in NASCAR right now.
Now, when it comes to Stewart Haas Racing, Aric Almirola was involved in a scary incident that occurred in pit road. While he was in his pit stall getting service, Anthony Alfredo spun on pit road and made contact with a couple of members of Almirola's crew. Thankfully, no one was hurt. Almirola's crew continued with the pit stop. Unfortunately, it was Atlanta Motor Speedway in 1990 where we had Mike Rich from Bill Elliott's team suffer fatal injuries. We'll discuss more about pit road safety at Atlanta later on in the program. Now, Kyle Larson finished second place. Earlier, NASCAR made a statement on Twitter about the Atlanta shootings. Kyle Larson was asked about the shooting by Alex Gaze from WXIA 11 Alive News out of Atlanta and Alan Cavanagh from Positive Regression. Here's what Kyle Larson had to say in response to their question.
Wow, just a non-race question for you. NASCAR put out a tweet before the race honoring the victims of the Atlanta spa shootings earlier this week. Just curious, your thoughts on how NASCAR has done, bringing light to real world issues and bringing that and tying it in with the sport.
Yeah, I feel like NASCAR has done a great job. I mean, you look at everything they did last year, after my deal, and then everything that they did here at Atlanta was great. Talladega, and really throughout the whole season, they've continued it through now. So, yeah, the real life stuff hits hard with everybody, and I feel like NASCAR as a sport's done a great job to get ahead of it and honor those people.
And just as a follow-up to that, just how were you personally able to process this week?
I really didn't, pay too much attention to it, but obviously, me being Asian American, I started noticing it more and more, and it definitely, hits closer to me probably. But yeah, hopefully things will get better in our world, and it's just a terrible time for Asians, and I hope it gets better.
Our final question for Kyle is going to come from Alan Cavanagh. Go ahead with the question, Alan.
Yeah, and Kyle, I had a track in the past year, how that has affected your mind when something like the spa shootings do happen and your reaction to them.
Yeah. I did do a lot of stuff last year, and it's definitely opened my eyes to, how people are treated differently. And that's something I never really paid attention to before. So, it stinks that, somebody can be treated differently because of their race or the color of their skin. So that's really what I learned a lot about last year. And it definitely means more to me now than maybe it would have in the past after everything that I went through.
It's not necessarily anyone's responsibility, but when you do have a platform, do you feel the need to be more forward on any issue when something does come up?
Yeah, I think so. I think us as athletes, for sure, we have powerful voices, so we can try and lead a change. So it's definitely important, and like we mentioned earlier, NASCAR has done a great job on these topics as well.
Very tragic, and we applaud NASCAR for taking the moment to condemn Asian hate. We echo that message. Hate has no place.
Definitely, Joe. Well said. The 69 Mobile 1 12 Hours of Sebring lived up to the hype once again. This 12-hour endurance race crown jewel event had literally everything, had a little bit of everything. Intense action from green flag to checker flag, RG Bargy, as Colin Fish likes to say, drama, a few scary incidents, and we have a lot to discuss. At the start, pole sitter Pippo Durrani held on to the lead in his number 31 Action Express race in Whelen Engineering sponsored Cadillac DPI, but soon faced a challenge from Ringer Van de Zandt in the number 01 Chip Ganassi racing Cadillac. Pippo and Ringer got side by side while trying to overtake a GTD car. Ringer changed his line to avoid hitting the GTD car, coming down on Pippo and forcing the 31 to hit a wall. This basically ended the Whelen Engineering prototype's chances of winning, as they had to play catch up for the rest of the race after running into more problems later on. The other Action Express car had a tough start to the race too. After crashing on the final lap of qualifying on Friday, 7-time NASCAR Cup Series champion Jimmy Johnson started the race in the number 48 Allied Cadillac. Jimmy had a good start during the opening minutes of the race, keeping up with the DPI field and ahead of the number 5 Mustang sampling Cadillac. Then he got into GTD traffic, tried to pass one of the slower cars, went for a spin, and got hit by Lloyd Duvall in the number 5 Cadillac. Both DPIs went to the pits for repairs, and it was definitely a lucky escape from Jimmy. They changed the nose, sent him back out, and he was fortunate enough to stay on the lead lap. But Mustang sampling fell 2 laps down and definitely had an uphill climb. After the incident, Jimmy didn't put a wheel wrong for the rest of the day. His lap times got better and better, started to navigate traffic more efficiently, and overall just looked more comfortable driving a high downforce prototype like he's been doing it for a decade or so. Definitely a good recovery from Friday, although he didn't necessarily get the finish he'd like. His teammate Kamui Kobayashi came across the line in third, but the team was demoted to last place in the class because Simon Pagenaud exceeded his drive time by a mere 50 seconds. So definitely unfortunate miscalculation by Action Express in this, partnership with Hendrick Motorsports. Chad Ganassi was on the box as well. Despite a disappointing ending to the weekend and several mistakes along the way, how much has Jimmy Johnson improved in the Cadillac DPI since the Daytona qualifying race?
I think he's improved quite a bit, but I still think he has a long way to go, and I think that should be expected. I think I forget who on the NBC broadcast said it, but I remember somebody was mentioning when you look at Scott Dixon, who's a multi-time IndyCar champion, Jimmy Johnson, obviously a NASCAR champion, you kind of expect them to just hop in a race car and pick up right where they left off from their series and perform well right out of the gate. And what they were saying to counter that is that it doesn't really matter who you are. If you get in a new car, it's going to take some time to find your footing and get on the same level as your teammates who have been doing it for much longer than you have, no matter who you are. So in Jimmy Johnson's case, has he improved from a couple of months ago in Daytona? Absolutely. But he still has a long way to go to match. I don't know, maybe Kobayashi's not fair because Kobayashi is just so incredible. But, to be on the same level where we expect him to be able to jump in, the very beginning of the race weekend and put down competitive lap times, I still think he has a little bit of ways to go, but that's to be expected.
Yeah, definitely. It's to be expected that Jimmy's not going to be in the same level as the other DPI competitors, the fastest ones in class. Like you mentioned, Kamui's one of the top of the Ringer Van de Zandt was setting some fast time. Scott Dixon, Kevin Magnussen, they were extremely fast. The Mazda guys were very quick as well. Yeah, so you can't really expect Jimmy to be matching the same lap times as those regulars in DPI. And as we saw in the Rolex 24, Chase Elliott, the defending NASCAR champion, Chase Elliott struggled really badly in the Cadillac DPI, and it would be interesting to see how Chase could do if he was able to get more seat time in that car. And as we've seen with Jimmy since the Daytona qualifying race, it looked like he was very conservative. Yeah, he drove very conservative in the qualifying race. Rolex 24, he didn't necessarily have the pace of his teammates, but Jimmy's continued to get better and better. And I noticed towards the end of his final stint in the Rolex 24, Jimmy was able to get a lot closer. And in qualifying before he crashed out there, he was getting much closer to the other DPI competitors as well, and saw the same thing during the race. So I definitely think Jimmy deserves a lot of credit for all the hard work that he's doing in order to be successful in endurance racing, and also using this high downforce car to prepare for IndyCar racing that he's going to do in just a month's time. And as I said a little while ago, the race had several scary incidents. The first was the number 19 GRT Grasser Lamborghini of Frank Pereira. Something went wrong mechanically with the Lambo and crashed hard into the number 28 Allegro Motorsports Mercedes, driven by Billy Johnson. Both drivers went off at a high rate of speed and crashed very hard into the tire barriers. The hit was hard enough where it moved the wall back, and we had to stop the action for a little while for repairs. Luckily, Pereira and Johnson got out of the car under their own power and did a TV interview after that. The number 22 United Autosports LMP2 went for a spin with Jim McGuire behind the wheel. He re-entered the track right in front of the number 31 Whelen Engineering Cadillac, and lucky enough, the driver who was behind the wheel of that DPI at the time was paying attention, and he swerved to avoid McGuire, and that really could have been such an ugly shunt. And IMSA ended up penalizing McGuire with a drive-through penalty for an unsafe re-entry to the track. And speaking of ugly shunts, the number 8 Tower Motorsport LMP2 could not avoid it. Tim Bourret lost control of that LMP2 car, spun off course, smashed into some tire barriers, destroying the car as it flipped over and landed on all fours. Bourret was able to get out of the car unharmed, but it definitely looks like a lost chassis for Tower, and really unfortunate there. Also, there was a big fire in the BMW Team RLL pits, the number 24 GTLM car. They put out the fire, and once again, we got extremely lucky that nobody was seriously injured. Is it just me, or did Sebring seem a little bit more chaotic than usual?
This year's Sebring's race did seem a lot more chaotic than usual. I don't think it was anything like out of the ordinary. It wasn't like, drivers were going extra hard or the track condition was even extra bumpy. I just feel like it's just one of those deals where every few years we have a more chaotic event, and this year just felt like it was a lot more chaotic.
Yeah, I must confess, I'm still a little bit newer to IMSA than other forms of racing, but it does seem like, I'm thinking back to Daytona in particular and the season finale in 2020. Sports car fans have definitely been treated to some really good action, some really good racing the last few IMSA races. So we'll see if that continues on. But it definitely seemed like Sebring had there were a lot of layers to a race this year, and it seemed like there was a lot going on.
Yeah, definitely. There was a lot going on. Looking at the rest of the DPI field, after the number 31 Cadillac went out of contention, it seemed like the two cars who fought for the win in the closing minutes of the Rolex 24 would be the ones to beat. The number 10 Konica Minolta Acura DPI from Wayne Taylor Racing and number 01 Cadillac DPI from Chip Ganassi Racing. Unfortunately, Felipe Albuquerque made contact with Jack Hawksworth's GTD Lexus, causing damage to the prototype. This pushed Wayne Taylor Racing back a few positions, and they were able to get the damage repaired. It was still competitive, but they were not a serious threat for the win anymore, although Alexander Rossi was able to get the car back into contention. Late in the race, Scott Dixon was pulling far ahead of the DPI competition and was getting ready to pit, handing the car over to Ringer van de Zande for the final stint. It seemed like Dixon got a late call to bring the car down pit road for the final time. Then he cut down from pit road from the high lane, exiting turn 17 onto the front stretch, and ended up hitting one of the BMW GTLM cars, and the car suffered damage and put Ganassi out of contention. How tough is it for Chip Ganassi Racing to suffer two heartbreaking defeats to start off the season, especially after showing race-winning pace at Daytona and Sebring?
Yeah, it's got to be very tough. I'd love Wayne Taylor Racing. I love Alexander Rossi, but I would have loved to see the battle at Daytona be able to play out naturally, because it really looked like that 01 car had a head of steam at Daytona. It was shaping up to be a really good finish before they cut the tire. And yesterday at Sebring, the same thing. The 01 looked like it had the pace to win, and just unfortunate circumstances taking them out of the race. It's got to be very tough, and certainly hope that they can rebound throughout the rest of the season.
Very tough break. So close twice. Showing again pace. It's just one of those deals as racing. Sometimes you just have to keep trying, and then eventually that win's going to come. Especially considering they're coming back in this class, I think they have to at least look at the positives. We have fast cars. We are contending for wins here and there. It's just a matter of when they'll get that win.
Yeah, and I'm sure Ganassi will be able to put those two heartbreaks behind him and find victory lane at some point later this season in IMSA. And it's really crazy because they got the Cadillac DPI very late in the year. This program come online just like, I wouldn't say at the very last minute, but very close to being considered last minute, and to be able to fire off the truck with the amount of speed they showed at Daytona and also pull away at the end at Sebring. It shows that once they put all this bad luck behind them, Chip Ganassi Racing is going to be a threat to win these DPI races. And Mazda Motorsports led at points in the race. The Ally Cadillac led some when they got off sequence. Simon Pagenaud helped the team catch up after Jimmy's mistake, and Jimmy was solid, as I said, after his hiccup. And Kamui Kobayashi just did Kamui Kobayashi things. He's so freaking fast. And Meyer Shank Racing, they were competitive, but they just didn't have the speed to win. However, the winning team caught everybody by surprise, and nobody really expected them to be a factor, especially after they battled adversity throughout the race. The number 5 Mustang Sampling Cadillac DPI played catch up all day, starting with the damage from hitting a spinning Jimmy Johnson and falling 2 laps behind. It was uncertain if they'd be able to catch the full course caution at the right time to receive the wave box to get their laps back. Then Felipe Nasr in the number 31 Cadillac got really loose, entering turn 1, went wide into Tristan Vautier, who was exiting the pits at the time, right in the path of Nasr as both Cadillacs went spinning. And Vautier was just an innocent bystander, had nowhere to go. Another setback for the Mustang Sampling car. Miraculously, the number 5 earned both laps back and took the lead late in the race, with Sebastian Bourdais behind the wheel holding off Harry Chinknell, Kamui Kobayashi, and Dan Cameron. And I was just wondering, where in the heck did they come from? Because last time I looked, they were 2 laps down. Then I blinked, and they're up front leading the race. So definitely JDC Miller Motorsports Mustang Sampling overcame a lot of obstacles to win the 69th running of the Mobil 1 12 Hours of Sebring, with drivers Sebastian Bourdais, Lloyd Duval, Tristan Vautier, and Sebastian Bourdais last won Sebring in 2015 with Action Express Racing with teammates Christian Fittipaldi. Sebastian Bourdais, Lloyd Duval won Sebring an entire decade ago in 2011 with the Peugeot team with teammates Olivier Panis and Nicolas Lapierre. And Tristan Vautier wins Sebring overall for the very first time. And here's my question for you guys. Is this the perfect example of perseverance in endurance racing?
I think so. I think when it comes to these, particularly Sebring, Daytona, Le Mans, 12-hour races, 24-hour races, because of how long the race is, you can never give up. You can never let yourself fall out of it. And I think the first 24 hours of Le Mans that I can remember actively watching was 2017. And I remember getting into the closing hours, an LMP2 car was leading outright because all the LMP1 cars had trouble at some point in the race. And eventually the Porsche did end up reclaiming the overall lead and taking both the class and the overall victory. But you just never know what's going to happen in these races. There's so much time for something to go wrong or something to change. And so even if you're a couple of laps down, you have to keep fighting as if you're on the lead lap because you never know what's going to happen.
100% agreed. The length of these races, the long time that is involved. And of course, when it comes to the pit stops as well, we know the pit stops, they're not exactly the fastest pit stops because of the rules that IMSA has in place. So there's always got to be the mentality going out there, racing for the win, even when you're a couple laps down, having a rough race, because if the leaders have bad luck, you could capitalize, gain positions, and a surprise win, and it still always usually comes down to the last lap. So it's never over till it's over.
Yeah, it's never over till it's over, and you have to give JDC Miller Motorsports Mustang Sampling a lot of credit for hanging in there, because I know you go 2 laps down during the race and you're thinking our chances of winning are over and you get dejected, but they kept digging, kept fighting, and kept believing. Those full course cautions come out at the right time, got back on the lead lap, and they went out there and shocked everyone to win the race, because this is one of the smaller operations in DPI, and they were able to take down a lot of the bigger teams in DPI who have that factory funding. So definitely this was like an underdog victory for such an improving DPI team. Looking at the other class winners in LMP2, that went to the number 52 PR1 Matheson Motorsports, Orica, Mikkel Jensen, Scott Huffaker, and Ben Keaton. And with Mikkel Jensen behind the wheel, he held off a fierce charge from Ryan Dial's number 18. Air Motorsport Orica late LMP3 class winners, number 54 Core Autosport with Colin Brown, John Bennett, and George Kurtz. 47 Motorsports and Riley Motorsports swapped the lead all race long. Every time I looked at the top of the hour for the update, it was either 47 Motorsports or Riley Motorsports in the lead. But all of a sudden, Core Autosport emerged late and stole the show from those 2 teams who dominated the day. And in GTLM, it was the number 79 Proton Competition WeatherTech Racing Porsche 911 RSR. It was a Pro-Am lineup of with 2 Porsche factory drivers, Matthew Jomine, Matt Campbell, and then the Am driver, Cooper McNeil. So, and this was a big deal because this is a privateer entry taking down BMW and the Corvette factory cars, and contact late between the BMW, Connor DeFilippi, and Antonio Garcia really put them in the position for this to happen, because DeFilippi and the BMW got a penalty for hitting Garcia, and Garcia's car was wounded, and this opened the door for the Proton WeatherTech Porsche to win GTLM. And in GTD, that went to number 9 Pfaff Motorsports Porsche with Lawrence Van Thor, Zachary Robichon, and Lars Kern. And it was really a battle between Pfaff and Wright Porsches all race long. and Pfaff was the one who ended up on top. Now switching to the NASCAR doubleheader yesterday, it was a doubleheader Saturday, or should I say controversial Saturday, starting with the truck race. Like the last time out in Las Vegas, it was a KBM day. Kyle Busch obviously had the best truck by far, dominated most of the race, and won for the 60th time in the truck series. However, all the talk was about John Hunter Nemechek winning both stages, passing Kyle Busch both times. Ben, the team owner, many believe that Kyle let John Hunter go by in order to secure those playoff points, being ineligible to earn driver's points. In the truck series, winning stages doesn't mean anything to cup drivers at this level. While we can't confirm Kyle's true intentions here, we do not know. I mean, we do know how much he loves winning and hate losing, so it might be hard to imagine him just letting his driver collect those playoff points and he focus on the grand prize. At the same time, he's a team owner and a businessman in the series, so he'll always do what's best for Kyle Busch Motorsports. And Ben, I want to know, what's your take on this situation?
First of all, team orders in motorsports are universally always bad. I'll always try to be consistent on that side of the argument there. Not a fan of team orders, no matter what the situation is. And the team owner letting his driver win the stage and get a playoff point, that falls right into that category for me. But I have to wonder, if Kyle Busch is truly, let's suppose that is what he was trying to do, and I think there's probably a good chance that was. If he's so concerned about John Hunter Nemechek getting playoff points by letting him to the point where he's going to let him win the stages, why was Kyle in the race in the first place? Because Kyle goes on to win the Truck Series race, and that's 5 playoff points that could have gone to a Truck Series regular or even his own driver, John Hunter Nemechek. So, every time Kyle Busch runs, I mean, I don't mean to single Kyle Busch out because I know a lot of drivers are going to be doing it next week at the Bristol Dirt Race. We had Truex do it in the Xfinity race at Atlanta this weekend. Every time this happens, and particularly when the Cup driver wins an Xfinity or truck race, we always come back to this discussion. Should we continue to allow Cup drivers to race in the Xfinity and Truck Series? And I've been very vocal on the side of the argument that it does more harm than good. I just, if Kyle, to me, is so concerned about that, why is he even there in the first place?
And this is definitely a debate that we'll keep having over and over and over again. We've been having this debate for many years now, and it's going to continue many years into the future as well. So really appreciate your take on that, Ben. Also, another story that everybody was following in Atlanta was Bill Lester. Bill Lester made his first Truck Series start yesterday since 2007. He drove the number 17 for David Gilliland Racing. Overall, to say the least, it was a long day for Bill Lester. He finished 36, 7 laps down. And remind you, a lot has changed in the sport since he last raced in the NASCAR Capital World Truck Series. The 60-year-old had a massive disadvantage of being out of the seat for a long time. No practice, no qualifying, just a few pace laps and go racing, dropping a green flag. It would be really interesting, in my opinion. What if we had practice and qualifying? Could we see Bill Lester improve a little bit, because he was definitely put in a tough spot, not being able to get used to the truck until race time. So it was basically like a big practice session for him. More importantly, I'm sure that Bill was just happy to simply return to the NASCAR Truck Series and race at his home racetrack, Atlanta Motor Speedway. Here are the top 3 finishers after the truck race, starting with Kyle Busch, answering Lee Spencer from motorsport.com.
A solid performance by our number 4 Mobil 1 Toyota Tundra Kyle Busch Motorsports team. Overall, I feel good with the performance. Disappointed to come home third, but overall a solid performance. Kyle was really fast today. We had our ups and we had our downs there towards the end, but to kind of run in the top 3 all day is a solid performance and a solid statement. So I don't think we're worse than that, but overall, won both stages. Really solid points day for us, continuing to move forward to Bristol Dirt next week, and to come home third. I mean, I shouldn't be disappointed with it, but got beat under that green flag pit stop a little bit, and then we needed a little bit different adjustment. So a little bit of, I guess, I need to do better on that end, on telling them what I need there towards the end of the race. And track kept changing, so I had to stay on top of it. But congrats to Kyle. I think we're 1-1 now. So I think he's back in a truck at Richmond. So hopefully we can go beat him there.
It was an all right day for our United Rentals Toyota Tundra. Kind of just one of those days that we were there all day. We ran up front, ran inside the top 3 all day. Just there at the end, we needed a little more, just to be better and to beat them. That last green flag run, that last restart, I kind of let the 51 and the 4 kind of get out a little bit, and I was trying to save my right front and right rears as much as I could. And whenever it was go time, I started closing in the gap a little bit, but I wasn't closing it in as much as I was hoping for. And that, as we had our pit sequences, we did all of our pit stops. Pit crew did an awesome job all day, especially on the last stop. They got me out in front of the 4, and I actually gained a little bit on Kyle during the pit stop, I believe. So then it was when we had clean air, I could match his lap times. Every now and then I'd be a little quicker than he was, and it just there at the end, I kind of was hoping for a caution just to see what we could do, pump the tires up and just see what we could do, see if we could do anything with him. But all in all, it was a decent day for us. Just want to win so bad, and just coming up second, it's a good points day, but at the same time, you want to win.
It's good, obviously, we've had a lot of great people at KBM, and we continue to have great people at KBM, and it's ever evolving, and the sport's always changing. You try to stay on top of things, and when we had Rudy leaving there, and we had a vacancy that was to fill that, and then we had another one, and we got Eric Phillips. So I feel like we've gotten a really good, strong group of guys. I feel like Stockman's really good too. We were very successful last year. I was with him. So, hoping that we can all get collectively better and continue that trend and have the 4 truck definitely be in contention for the championship. I feel like those guys are really good. We just got to build on that 18 some more.
Now, when it comes to Supercar Racing, we had Supercar Racing earlier this weekend where Shane van Gisbergen came from 17th place to get the lead with just a couple laps remaining, take the win, and pretty much the second and the third race of the weekend, he just dominated, winning from the pole. He was leading the grid rating for the Supercar Series, most likely projected to possibly lead the grid ranking, which of course will come out the first Sunday of April. Shane is looking really tough, and he is also possibly projected to lead the Grid World Motorsport League, and that'll be updated tomorrow. Kobe, is there somebody in the Supercar Series that could stop Shane van Gisbergen?
First, I want to apologize for what I said in that last segment. I said Kyle Busch would be coming up first, but had no idea it was going to be in reverse order. So you saw John Hunter Nemechek, Austin Hill, then Kyle Busch. So definitely apologies there. And to answer your question, Joe, about who could possibly challenge Shane van Gisbergen, I don't really see anybody who can challenge him right now. And the only 2 drivers who could potentially have an opportunity are Chaz Mostert and Cam Waters. It seems like that they're the next closest one. Then Jamie Whincup, it might be just at like a half a step under those guys. But unless something happens mechanically with Shane's car or anything else, I don't really see nobody challenging Shane van Gisbergen. Shane van Gisbergen is probably happy to see Scott McLaughlin switching to the NTT IndyCar Series because it's looking like it's going to be a Shane van Gisbergen world, and we're just going to be living in it. Shane
looks really tough. Wednesday on Grid Tonight, we'll have more coverage of this race and Supercar news as Adam will be joining us, our Supercar expert. Be sure to tune into Grid Tonight, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Grid Network.
And yesterday we mentioned Austin Cindric, AJ Allmendinger, Martin Truex Jr. been favorites to win the Xfinity race. However, none of them ended up winning. Martin Truex Jr. finished second. AJ recovered from suffering damage in a crash to finish fifth. Cindric was also involved in that wreck and could only pull out a 13th place finish. Ultimately, Justin Allgaier held off Martin Truex Jr. to win at Atlanta. But the major storyline coming out of this race surrounds 2 drivers, especially one who we've talked about quite a bit here on the Grid Live wrap-up. After the race, Daniel Hamrick and Noah Gregson got into an altercation. Gregson was given an interview with PRN and on pit road post-race until Hamrick interrupted, pushing him aside. Then the 2 started swinging at each other. It all started when another car was in the pits behind Hamrick's box. Hamrick tried to hit his own box, accidentally went into Gregson's, had to back up, and ultimately ruined both of their pit stops. Gregson posted a video on Twitter showing him driving into his box at an awkward angle, putting the car in reverse, backing it into Hamrick's nose with pit crew members nearby, causing a hole in the Toyota Super's nose. On Twitter, Hamrick said Gregson flipped him off, and his intentions were clear. And I actually went back to the broadcast, and I did see a finger go out the window of Gregson's car, but I can't confirm if it was the middle finger. I just saw a finger go out of the car. I couldn't. Yeah, so it's really hard to say, but I definitely saw the finger go out the window, and then Hamrick admitted it on social media. So here's my question: did it look intentional to you, or more so frustration boiling over back and further than he anticipated?
I think there's only one person that knows for sure if it was intentional or not, and of course that's Noah Gregson. That being said, I still, regardless of his intentions or not, I still think he made a mistake, and it's unfortunate because I've never driven an Xfinity car before. I know some people were getting upset at people chiming in on Twitter. I'll acknowledge that I don't have that perspective, but it seems to me that Gregson was pretty much straight, and he continued to back up much further than he needed to until he hit Hamrick's car with his crew guys right there. And Joe, you mentioned the tragedy in Atlanta over 30 years ago. And now pit road safety's come a long way since then, but it's still a dangerous place. And regardless of the intentions or not, I would have liked to have seen NASCAR come down with some sort of penalty or punishment for Gregson, because at some point you need to send a message that you at the very least need to be more careful. And of course, if it can be proven that it was intentional, which I'm not saying it can or can't, but obviously if Gregson were to come forward and admit that, then you've got to up the penalty even more.
I have to agree. When it comes to the coverage, we got the video there, but we can't go into what Noah was thinking when that occurred. Essentially, it's been a rough year for Noah Gregson. I know that. Had to be frustrating with what happened in the race as well. And it's just one of those deals where it's just going to be something where I think a lot of people have been debating, talking about. I have to agree with the sentiment that NASCAR needs to really look at this. What happened back in 1990 really marred the sport, and especially that was the season-ending race. Thankfully, we've seen the advancements of safety in pit road especially, but still, it's a very dangerous place. And when it comes to NASCAR, I think they did make a decision, but I think they're going to have to continue evaluating what happened at the Xfinity race and today as well in the Cup Series race.
And looking at the other side, when Daniel Hamrick was asked about the conflict by the media, he said they're even now because Gregson punched a hole in the nose of his Toyota Supra, and he returned the favor by punching one in his eye. Gregson fired his own shot, saying, I quote, "I would be mad if I was him based on what he's done in his career." Obviously, referring to the fact that Hamrick has been in the sport this long and he still hasn't won a National Series race yet in NASCAR. Many were upset by Gregson backing up the car while Hamrick's crew were completing the pit stop because he could have hit a tire changer if things had played out differently. Even Cup Series star Denny Hamlin was critical of the situation, saying this is not okay. Bob Pockers from Fox Sports first reported that NASCAR called Gregson to the hauler after the race, and NASCAR made the announcement this morning calling the incident unintentional and that they would not be taking any action for the incident. Do you think Gregson's actions were dangerous, although NASCAR is not going to penalize him? And why do you think NASCAR chose not to give a penalty?
It was dangerous. I mean, essentially, if that crew member, for some reason, was starting to come around to the front all of a sudden as Gregson was backing up, we have a lot more different situation and a topic we don't want to talk about suddenly. I think when it comes to NASCAR, Gregson said it was unintentional, went to the hauler, made the case. NASCAR, they looked at it, they made a decision not to punish him, but I'm hoping NASCAR is thinking about at least we need to make some changes. Should we have a rule where maybe you're not allowed to back up on pit road? If that's the case, of course, that's going to change the complexion of the race. If somebody overshoots their pit a little and they have to go around because there's no reverse, it's something I think NASCAR really has to look into, because last thing we want is something like this to turn potentially tragic.
Yeah, like I said, I was very surprised that NASCAR, especially after calling Gregson a hauler, like once he was called a hauler, I thought for sure there would at least be a fine or a points penalty. I was surprised that no action was taken. And I sent a tweet out this morning when Bob Pockras confirmed that Gregson wouldn't be penalized. I said, you're allowed to penalize someone for doing something dangerous, even if it wasn't deliberate. And in this case here, like I said, pit road's a dangerous place. I don't know what Noah Gregson's intentions were, but regardless, it was not a good situation. He made a mistake that could have gotten a lot uglier than it was. I think NASCAR, to be quite honest with you, let him off pretty easy.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. Yeah, it's really hard to say for sure if Noah Gregson did this intentionally or not. He could have done it intentionally, especially with the evidence that his finger was out the window and Daniel Hamrick says it was the middle finger. That could make him look really guilty, but it could also be frustration boiled over, like you're mad with him and then you throw it in reverse, very angry, and go back a lot further than you anticipated, causing damage to the car. So it could have definitely been the other side as well, but we're never gonna know what the true answer is. Only Noah Gregson knows what he was thinking at the time, and I think NASCAR really dropped the ball when they chose not to punish him. I think Ben said it the best. Even if the actions, were not necessarily intentional, it was still dangerous and is a little disappointing in my opinion that NASCAR chose not to, issue at a minimum points penalty, not necessarily a race suspension. Just something to show that is dangerous, and it could have turned out, something completely different.
100% agree. I know we're starting to run out of time. Coming to the one shining moment, Ben, this weekend was the one shining moment for you.
I'm going to give it to Justin Allgaier, turning Junior Motorsports around, getting their first win of the season this weekend, and for beating Martin Truex Jr., a Cup driver coming down into the lower series. I forgot to mention when we were talking about this earlier, one argument that I like to use is, where else does this happen? You don't see Scott Dixon go down to run an Indy Lights race for fun. Lewis Hamilton, Sebastian Vettel, they don't run the F3 races on occasion. If you need examples from other sports, LeBron James not going to suit up for the Lakers G League team. You don't see Mike Trout going down to the Angels AA affiliate. I think it's a situation that as it continues to happen, we've got to look at. I can imagine Junior Motorsports in particular, they would have felt like they would have gotten a lot less press and a lot less money's worth had they lost the race to a Cup Series driver who's going to be getting that attention and press on Sunday anyway. But glad to see Justin Allgaier get the victory and particularly to beat a Cup driver to do it. I think that's got to give a lot of momentum to the Junior Motorsports team as a whole, and particularly Allgaier and the number 7 team.
And I'm going with the number 5, JDC Miller Motorsports, Mustang Sampling Cadillac DPI. That team, what they were able to overcome in the 12 hours of Sebring, like the entire team deserves to take a bow, because been involved in 2 major on-track incidents with Lloyd Duvall hitting Jimmy Johnson when he was spinning, and then getting clobbered by the Wheeling Engineering Cadillac DPI with Tristan Vautier behind the wheel, and having to rally back, get back on the lead lap from 2 laps down, then drive through the entire DPI field and win the race with a rear wing that failed in the final 20 minutes. It was just really crazy to watch them persevere the entire race, come back from all of that, and end up winning the Mobil 1 12 Hours of Sebring.
For my shiny moment, I have to go with race 1 of the Supercar Series, coming from 17th all the way back to the front to get the win. Broken collarbone 13 days ago in a mountain biking accident. Come back, get this win. I think that really set the tone for the entire weekend when he started dominating Shane van Gisbergen. Getting that win, he's going to be awfully hard to beat for the rest of the season. We are out of time. We thank everyone for watching. Please be sure to subscribe to the Grid Network right here on YouTube and like the video. For Kobe Landis, Ben Schneider, I'm Joe Sandiego. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.
Joe Samaniego here. Want to invite you to go check out Publis. Publis is a dog clothing and accessory company based in Austria. 10% of each of your purchases goes to helping dogs in need, whether it's homeless, sick, or ill dogs. This is one of the reasons why we support it. Kiska here is a rescue dog from rural Alaska and our Grid office dog. We care about our furry buddies, and we know you do as well. Definitely check out Publis.com. There's a link on the video description, and by clicking on that link, you get a 10% discount on your purchase as well.